Good morning, Facebook. Welcome to the Ask a Keeper edition of Bringing the Zoo to You here at Brookfield Zoo. As always, thank you for joining us and thank you for your continued support. Today, I'm with animal care specialist Paul, Jen, Jill, my name's Craig, and we have a couple animals here to just hang out with us. This is Kaya and Sophia, our leopard tortoises, and over there is our Dumerl's boa, that's Medusa.
So people have been submitting some questions, and we are here to ask you, the team of animal care specialists. And we are going to get started with, why did you want to become an animal care specialist?
We just going down the line.
I'll start, yeah. So for me, I always, every zookeeper or animal care specialist says the same thing. We always love animals. I've always had a love for animals too. But this wasn't a job that I knew that I could do until I was an adult, actually. I spent some time in the Navy, got out, had free college tuition at that point, not to plug the military, but at that point then I decided, you know what, this is something that I really want to do, and I had the means to do it. So I went to school for marine biology, actually. Again, I love working with animals, and I just wanted to do something that was meaningful, something that I could be proud of.
That was a really good answer. I don't know what I'm going to say. Somewhat along the lines of that, I've always been interested in animals. It's something I grew up around. In high school, I volunteered at a children's farm, and I volunteered at animal shelters, and I just always found them so interesting. I think that I could work around animals that are very unique and help with the conservation efforts too, help educate other people about these animals and things that I'm just so passionate about as well, and just being able to share that passion with people.
Yeah, I'm sure you're seeing a theme here. We all came into this field for pretty similar reasons. I actually originally thought that I wanted to do research in the wild, but I did an internship to get some experience, and I just fell in love with the animal care field because the internship was in animal care, and it was like day 2, and I just was like, I can't do anything but this. So here we are.
And, just like these guys, I also always have loved animals. And I actually started out wanting to be a veterinarian, and I did an internship here while I was in college and kind of fell in love with being able to work with the animals so closely and all the training that we do and all the guest interactions too, because we do a lot of education and one-on-one contact with the guests that we have here.
That's amazing. Thanks, everyone, for sharing your answers. And we did get some feedback that we are sideways. I don't know if that's a new feature. So we are going to flip the phone vertically. Sorry about that, everyone, but we're going to be vertical here with you the rest of the time. We are just wondering, we have some other questions. People have submitted their questions, and we are super excited to answer them. What does a usual day look like?
I can answer that one over here. So my day is always different, but kind of structured similarly. We can all attest that working with animals, you never really know what to expect. The animals that we work with, it's kind of a big variety of species, anything from reptiles and birds to different kinds of mammals. But a typical day for me, we start bright and early, and the first thing we always do is check on all of our animals and make sure that they are healthy and doing well. Then we typically will spend time cleaning their exhibits and their living spaces. We do medications for some of the animals. We will spend time prepping their food for either that day or for the next day too. And then the rest of the time is spent with like training or, like I mentioned before, we do chats, have some guest interaction, and yeah.
Never the same twice.
Yeah, it's always different.
What can be the most challenging animal to feed?
I can take that one. So just like with people, animals can have health issues, allergies, arthritis, all sorts of things. I think including the parakeets, we take care of about 600, 700 animals in this department. So as you can imagine, there's quite a few animals that could have health problems. So I think ones that need medication every day can be a little bit difficult to feed because you want to make sure they get those meds, and you need to make sure you put it in the type of food that they're going to like. And we also, you know, we have a couple herds here, like the reindeer and the goats, and we know they love to eat, but it can definitely be hard when it's a big group of animals. We want to make sure that everyone's getting their share. But we actually take care of that by whenever we feed a big group, we put food all over the place so that no one has to worry about fighting over it. And I think we also have a couple picky animals here too. Like our binturongs prefer their vegetables to be steamed, and there's quite a few vegetables they don't like. Everyone eats pretty well though, because we definitely figured our animals out. We know what they like.
That is super interesting. I didn't know the binturongs preferred their vegetables steamed. And this is probably an example of what you were just talking about, that you put the food kind of all over the place, and they can go around and explore it. What is the most worthwhile part of your job?
For me, it's the education aspect. Again, we're all very interested in the animals, and we're interested in preserving these animals for future generations. So being able to talk to the public and educate other people about it, for me, that's the most worthwhile thing that we do in this position. But not that, you know, there's anything bad about any of it. We love it all. But that's my favorite thing.
I'd have to agree with Paul, which is part of the reason why we're actually all in this department too, because we do get a lot of face time with the guests. We get to bring the animals out. We get to teach about the animal, teach about conservation, teach about why, you know, we need to care about these guys. We get to see the excitement on all the guests' faces, you know, seeing the guests ask questions and smile and laugh and take pictures, all that stuff. That's all very rewarding for us.
Knowing that they might take that home and actually start doing some conservation actions on their own is just really cool.
Yeah, like you guys, I'm holding this snake over here, Medusa, and it's very common for us to have a snake out for a chat or something, and we run into somebody who has a fear of snakes. But it's really, really rewarding when we can educate them a little bit and teach them about why snakes aren't so scary and why they're really awesome for the environment. And sometimes we get that person to even pet the snake. And, you know, they say like, oh, you know, this snake isn't that scary, or I didn't know that about snakes. And that's always really, really exciting.
I definitely agree with that as well. It's been hard during the pandemic. You know, we're not doing as much of the face-to-face. And it's definitely a big part of our job that we're missing. But I know we all enjoy doing these, bringing the zoo to you on Facebook. And since the zoo is open, Wild Encounters is open. If you come through our goat feeding, our aviary, or our wallaby yard, we always have a keeper there, and we are more than happy to talk to you. We love talking. I know sometimes people will be like, oh, I'm sorry to disturb you. And I'm like, no, please disturb me. I love talking about the animals. I love talking about, you know, my favorite animals, how I got here, everything. So we always love to talk to people.
And what are your favorite animals to work with here at the zoo?
I always tell people that's like asking a parent who their favorite kid is.
Yeah.
It's really tough. I personally love the birds of prey, but I love all the animals I work with.
I'm pretty well attached to the reindeer. That's just something that I've been working with since the very beginning on one of my first training projects. But I tend to like animals that kind of have that bad reputation, like Jill was talking about the snakes, or like animals like bats, who a lot of people fear bats, but they're really important, and a lot of times people just don't know, like, you know, about the animal, or, you know, it's natural to be afraid of them, but as long as we respect them and admire them, you know, yeah.
I would say, like Paul said, it's hard to pick because I almost feel guilty saying if I like one animal more than the other, but I definitely love the goats, the Nigerian dwarf goats. They're just so loving. They love attention. Every day I get to work with them, I'm so happy to see them.
And for me, it just depends on the day. You know, sometimes I love the llamas, but if they spit at you, not my favorite that day.
Maybe, yeah, not that day.
So I love the llamas. I love the lemurs that we work with. And I work closely with the budgies, and they're pretty awesome too. So it kind of just depends on the day.
So do you all, and there's a wide variety there, that was super interesting, none of you had the same answer. Do you all specialize in a certain animal, or do animal care specialists work with a wider variety?
I mean, everybody has the species that they have more experience with. Or
interests
with, yeah. But we have such a wide variety in this area that I think pretty much every keeper in this area has some experience with reptiles and mammals and amphibians and birds. So I think, we all have a little bit of experience with everything.
I'd say that the special skill for our department primarily would be knowing how to train these animals and like we would train a snake differently than we would train a mammal because they do different things, they learn differently. But training would probably be our special skill here as well as the guest interaction. So we still, we do have, in my case, I do tend to like reptiles more, so people might ask me more about the reptiles and maybe Paul, but then Paul would be the one to answer the questions about the birds more than I do. But overall, we still have that base knowledge, and more than anything, we know how to train those animals.
Yeah. I think in general, though, like if you're asking about keeper skills in general, like in some departments, you do have to be specially trained, like working with marine mammals, you might need to learn how to scuba dive or something like that. So yeah, it kind of just depends on the animals.
Absolutely. So there can be even specializations with what certain types of animals you work with, or it might even be something as specific as I work with marine mammals.
Exactly.
Very cool. And Lynn did ask, no one said their favorite animal to work with was Pascal.
We love him too.
We all love Pascal here. I think he is a fan favorite. But I know that otters can be a little stinky sometimes. And my question is, how do you manage animal odors in your personal life?
All right, well, the big thing is that we do wear uniforms, so we don't have to go home smelling like this. That being said, just in our department alone, we do work with some animals that have very unique and distinct smells, whether it's our tamandua or if you work on our hoofstock run, goats have a different smell from llamas who have a different smell from reindeer, and you'll learn all three of those distinct smells. Our porcupines have a very strong smell too. So lots of showers, and like I tell my partner who works in another department in this area or in this zoo, she comes home smelling like various things, and she had to change up her routine based on my opinion because she would come home smelling like some interesting stuff, even though she would change her clothes.
Interesting, distinct, and strong. Those are all very polite words to describe what an animal can smell like.
They do seem to enjoy
the different scents.
Smells. It's enriching for them. My dog would come home and smell my pile of clothes on the floor for probably 10 minutes.
Oh, I'm sure that's super interesting for your dog to be like, what is that
I think
smell?
one of our seasonal keepers who just started said she was going home in her uniform and her dog wouldn't even let her come in the door. So she had to learn, I have to start changing before I go home because her dog is just like, oh my gosh, what do you smell like? This is so exciting.
Like, which animals have you been with today? And why have I never met them? So, are any of the animals ever dangerous to work with?
We always tell kids, anything with a mouth can bite. So there's the potential for, a bite or unpleasant interaction with any animal because obviously they're still wild animals. They're not domesticated. But having said that, we work with these animals a lot. We gain their trust. We train them. We can read their body language to an extent. So we can kind of tell what they're feeling. If they're having a bad day, we might back off on the training for a little bit, give them their space. Depending on what animals you might work with elsewhere in the zoo, say like big cats, those are protected contacts. Obviously they are dangerous, so they never go in with those guys. But we always try to use proper safety protocols and precautions, no matter what types of animals we're working with, whether they're the little tiny guys or something really big.
When we do work with new animals or acquire new animals, we also do a lot of research, make sure we know a lot about them. For instance, we did have a male reindeer a few years back, and he was the biggest baby you would ever see. He was really sweet. We did a lot of tactile with him. He was trained to put on a halter and do short walks. But during breeding season, he would get really aggressive, which is natural. And in that case, a lot of that stuff would get put on hold, and we would do a lot of, we'd shift him away so that we can go in and service the enclosure. And as soon as breeding season was over, he would just go right back to being like a big dog. So it's just, like
it's
Paul
the ins
said,
and outs of working with animals.
we know our animals, we know about the species.
And the individuals.
And the individuals, yeah.
And what do you, a lot of people did ask us, how can they become an animal care specialist? Do you have any advice for an aspiring animal care specialist?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of zoos nowadays will require a bachelor's degree, so stay in school, but get experience. If you can, volunteer. If you can't volunteer at somewhere where, at like a zoo where there's wild animal species, volunteer at your local animal shelter. It's great for those animals, but it's great for you too, because a lot of the training methods that we use here are pretty similar to the ones you would use for your dog or cat at home. So that gives you a head start as well. But internships later on when you can, those are a great way to gain experience, and just keep at it.
Yeah, I did about 10 months worth of internships. I volunteered at a couple places. I also worked at a veterinary clinic for a little bit. It definitely takes time, it takes persistence, but I can tell you it pays off. And you just gotta get, a lot of experience, and especially if you do want to work with some kind of specialized animal, try to kind of figure out what you like and then, kind of go towards that.
And building off that, there's a lot of professional organizations you can join, and a lot of them give student rates too. So they have a lot of good resources, whether you're interested in birds or reptiles, you can usually find a professional organization that kind of suits what you're interested in.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your answers. That was incredible. We've been hanging out with our great team of animal care specialists over here, and they've been answering all our questions.
All right. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for your continued support. And the zoo's open now, so come and visit us. The weather's getting great. It's awesome out here, and you might get to see any one of us and hang out. If you ever want to chit chat with us, we're always ready to do so.
And the animals miss you.
Yeah. We do.
So say hi to the animal care specialist when you're visiting, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.